In a competitive world, when we have any way to practice some sport and make some money, every single entity wants to win. In motorsport, there's no secret. While they can actually say they want to test and gain some experience, they all want to win. Race cars are built to do nothing but win races. And when these things didn't go as expected, depending on the context of the whole thing, it can be a massive, a hurtful, ridiculous, tremendous disaster that it can even embarrass someone. In this video, I'm gonna bring you 3 race cars from the modern era of sports car racing that have run at Le Mans in recent years. They were claimed to be successful, but they were a disaster. They failed on everything. And thanks to their poor performance at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, their respective manufacturers want to hide them. If movies could work in real life, they could probably act like Men in Black and put that laser lipstick in your head, point it to your head and set you to forget about all these cars they designed to race at Le Mans. My name is Nick and welcome to Japanese Racing Cars on YouTube. So let's get started by talking about one of the most stunning prototypes ever built. And let's go back to the 1990s where we had the boom, that was the glory days of sports car racing, where we had a lot of manufacturers. That was a boom of manufacturers joining the GT1 and LMP racing at Le Mans. This is perhaps the fastest of all the 3 cars that I will talk here, as well the most stunning one and the most unstable. Of course, I'm talking about this guy right here. The Mercedes CLR, the Flying Mercedes. In 1997, Mercedes-Benz returned to endurance sports car racing after being constantly active in touring car racing after the demise of Group C in the 1990s. They were active in DTM, and when the championship folded after the 1996 season as ZTC, they relocated their full factory efforts and put in sports car racing in the GT1 class at the newly elaborated FIA GT Championship. There, Mercedes brought the most dominant GT1 car of the 90s, the V12 powered CLK GT-R, and then in 1998, following the successful steps of the previous car, they brought the V8 powered CLK LM. However, due to the loophole that manufacturers were exploring to homologate sort of prototypes in GT1 class, FIA and ECO decided to cancel temporarily the GT1 class, replacing them by GT2 cars in the FIA GT Championship, and at Le Mans it was replaced by a new type of sports prototype, the LMGTP. The LMGTP was destined to cars that were previously seen in GT1 class, with heavy modifications and with no need to build a road car variation and homologate special of that race car. They were closed cockpit prototypes, while the other prototype class we had at the time, the LMP, started to be more conventional to open top prototypes. As an answer to this new rule set and the desire to win Le Mans overall since 1989, Mercedes alongside HWA had built the Mercedes CLR. Pretty much similar to the predecessors, the CLK GT-R and LM, but underneath a completely different Mercedes race car. The design of the car had been influenced by the sleek lines of the Porsche 911 GT1 that went to win overall Le Mans in the previous year. With minimal, low-profile downforce style design and a shorter wheelbase, slated to be a key point of advantage at the Le Mans Mulsanne Straight, and this was the big deal that put this car to a dead-end story. As you may suggest, and the motorsport story tells, the car went airborne with Mark Webber behind the wheel of the qualifying of the 1999 race. The engineers were not that aware of the big failure of the car, the aerodynamics, and decided to repair the same car and put again at the track to race normally. But once again, with Mark Webber behind the wheel, during the warm-up session, the same car went airborne and took off again. And Mercedes finally withdrew this car from the race.
What happened was he got behind another car, got into some turbulent air. There's a little bit of contention as to exactly what happened, as to whether perhaps a part of the car came off or whether it was purely the...
They were there with 3 CLRs. One was lost, and they decided to race with the remaining two. To avoid instability and avoid to see the car rock in the skies again, they decided to put a pair of canards in the side section of the front of the car. But that wasn't enough, and after just 4 hours of the race, while Pete Dunbrack was in a pursuit of the number 2 Toyota GT1, his CLR went airborne at the section before the Indianapolis corner. And different from any of the Mark Webber's accident with this car, this one was seen live on TV by millions of fans around the world, and then the disaster was complete.
The Toyota lights ablaze. Make sure the slower cars see them. Here we go. Oh my god, the Mercedes has taken off.
That didn't take too long, and Mercedes decided to retire the other car, the remaining car at the track, and call it back to the garage. And then Mercedes closed its doors. And the Mercedes CLR project, which was set to do some races after Le Mans, was naturally cancelled. And Mercedes-Benz, despite being hugely active in GT racing nowadays, they never returned back to proper sports car racing. Jumping from the 90s and going straight to the early 2010s, we have a very different scenario when the top-tier sports prototype class was LMP1. Now, it's hard to imagine it that a similar problem and instability caused by the Mercedes CLR back in the 90s could happen again. But while the car could be really stable, stuck on the floor, it could be stuck on performance. And then we have another big failure of another legendary manufacturer, Aston Martin, with their 2011 prototype, the AMR-One. This is the only car of this video that raced outside Le Mans before the ultimate fiasco. Aston Martin and Le Mans are names that can be easily affiliated with success, especially in the early decades of the race, where it was overall winner of the 1959 race with the classic DBR-1300. Aston Martin also resurged in the 1980s during the Group C era, creating prototypes like the Nimrod series and the original AMR-One in 1989. But the most profitable period of Aston Martin at Le Mans was when the second era of GT1 was on fire. They partnered with ProDrive and created the Aston Martin Racing Division, the AMR, and returned to endurance racing with the Aston Martin DBR9. The background of the AMR colossal failure started as a successor to the very hugely successful V12 powered Lola Aston Martin DBR-12, also known as Lola B0960, a stunning prototype that was active in the late 2000s. The AMR-One was an open-top cockpit prototype, in contrast with the predecessor, the DBR-12, as well the diesel-powered rivals such as Audi and Peugeot, which were the closed cockpit prototypes at the time. It was powered by a 2.0-liter 6-cylinder engine, in contrast with the V12 that was powering the previous car, the Lola Aston Martin DBR-12, and less powerful as well. But all the AMR team claimed that this engine could be efficient on the new chassis, on the new AMR-One, which subsequently failed. The AMR-One debuted at the 6 Hours of the Castellet at Paul Ricard. While the race was won by a legendary Pescarolo team, the new AMR car suffered a lot and it was completely off the pace, being classified above LMP2 cars at the final standings. The car completed only 97 laps out of 185. Thanks to the poor performance of this car at the 6 Hours of the Castellet, they decided to pull out of all the remaining races of the Intercontinental Le Mans Cup to focus more on the development of the car to the one and only, the big one, Le Mans. And again, as you may expect, things were even worse than expected. While the Mercedes CLR was unstable but capable to race, the AMR-One wasn't. The AMR-One just completed 4 laps at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, just 4 laps at the Lassart. 2 cars were seen entered by the factory team at the 2011 24 Hours of Le Mans. One was retired just after 2 laps completed, and then the other one, after 4 laps completed, it was dominated by unreliability, and the cars spent too much time at the pit and the team was unable to go back and repair the car to the race, and then it was retired. To absolutely forget about the shameful results of this car, Aston Martin Racing literally forgot about the existence of this car cancelled the project, and they brought back the Lola Aston Martin DBR1 2 down to the Le Mans post challenges. But if you think that after Aston Martin, no other manufacturer has repeated the feat of lack of proper development ahead of the 24 Hours of Le Mans to be successful and at least fast, congratulations. You're wrong. Because Nissan was bringing back its name to the classic endurance race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, with an all-new prototype. Perhaps the most exquisite prototype ever seen in motorsport history. When I think about Nissan, I think immediately about the GT-R. When I think about GT-R, I immediately think about that mad dog all-wheel drive sports car challenging Porsche and Ferraris at the track. But Nissan actually made the impossible possible and branded its new LMP1 prototype as GT-R. GT-R LM Nismo. Nissan and Le Mans are well known to each other, especially in the two eras that defined the race in the 80s and 90s. Nissan was there alongside Toyota and Mazda representing Japan in the Group C era, as well challenging the field with the spectacular R33 LMGT1. And then they appeared with the R319 GT1 and the final real prototype of the manufacturer, the R391 LMP. Nissan did not have a proper sports prototype in the 2000s, but they supplied several teams with its sophisticated V8 naturally aspirated engine, especially in the early 2010s with the LMP2 cars. However, after 16 years away from Le Mans with a flagship proper sports prototype, unconventional LMP1 that wasn't seen since the early 2000s with the Panos LMP, that one with the engine mounted in the front. GT-R LMP1 is also front-engined, but without the hybrid system working, the car is front-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive! This thing is front-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive. FF. FWD. Well, the project was backed by Nissan, but the full, in fact, effort came from US, with people coming from all American races, and Cosworth getting involved with the project, while Nissan just gave the name and license, as well an amount of money to be spent in ads of this car prior to the 2015 Le Mans. The car was reported to be on test since 2014, but it suffered a lot from its development, especially regarding its hybrid system, which wasn't working anyway. Nissan entered the 2015 FIA-WC season as a full-time entrant, but without proper development and too much time and money spent on media stuffs, the car's debut was postponed again, and then postponed again, and it was time to the big one. It's time to race, or this car will be a lame. It raced and it was literally a lame. Without the hybrid system working properly, the car was off the pace of the field, being even slower than LMP2 prototypes. The three chassis suffered a lot. Two were retired thanks to the lack of reliability, and one finished too far from the first place at Porsche 919, and it ended as a non-classified score. After Le Mans, Nissan invested a lot on tests of this car, set to reappear at the remaining races of the 2015 FIA-WC season, which unfortunately never happened. Instead, the GT-R LMP1 was put on development ahead of the 2016 season, until the program was officially cancelled melancholy at the end of 2015. Ironically, 2015 was the most successful season for Nissan in general since the 90s. By winning the Baltrus 12-hour race with the R35 GT-R, the Blancpain Endurance Series Championship, and Super GT Bodon GT500 and GT300 class. It's kinda obvious that the LMP1 effort was overshadowed by these feats, or actually, as it's written in this video, Nissan wants you to forget the existence of this car anyway. What happened to these cars? How about the whereabouts of them? In the Mercedes CLR's case, one is still owned by HWA, the partners of Mercedes-Benz that built these cars. Alongside them, it's still owned and it's still being displayed at their headquarters. and the other one is privately owned, and it's the only one that didn't flip. On the Aston Martin side, one was sold to a private collection of the United States. Other two chassis were converted and transformed into another race cars. One was transformed into the Pescarolo 03 and the other one became the Delta Wing. Both these cars raced at the 2012 24 Hours of Le Mans, with the Delta Wing being active until 2016, and the infamous GT-R LM Nismo, the LMP1 Nissan. A 12 Nissan wants to forget about the complete existence of this car. One was donated to the Le Mans Museum, and you can check the car there and remember the most and perhaps the biggest flop of Le Mans history in recent years. And that's it. Thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe, leave a thumbs up and share this channel and this video with your friends as well. Go check this page on Instagram, go check this page on Facebook. Thanks so much for your feedback. I hope to see you more here, and I'll see you in the next one.